Good day, everybody. Hey, this is Dr. Terry and Tom with the Metaphysical Mysteries Podcast, the most interesting part of your day. And today we have with us Susanna Massari from the great state of Florida. She is a psychic medium, death doula, author, all around good gal. You might know her from her husband, Tom Massari, who's done a lot of mentorship with pretty advanced channels like Daryl Anka and does Bashar. And so she is right in the center of all this metaphysical work. And so we're extremely happy to have Sue here with us. So welcome.
Thank you so much. I'm really honored to be here.
Fantastic.
Yeah,
Well,
great.
let's briefly talk about your book for just a second. You've got a book out. I want to get that out right out front. We'll hit it at the end too. It's called
Okay.
Living Beyond Death. Living Beyond
Okay.
Death. So
Uh, this is the book. The tagline is Understanding Consciousness, Life Within Death, Creative Freedom, and the Limitless Expression of the Self in This World and Worlds Beyond.
that's a pretty thick book. It looks
It
like that took you some time.
it did. It was 3 years in the making. When I was doing doula work and volunteering with hospice, and then COVID hit, and we weren't allowed to go in and do volunteer work. And I was mainly a vigil volunteer, and I also went to visit people in several nursing homes in the area. So we weren't allowed to go back and visit with the patients, and that's when I started on the book. And so it took a good 3 years to write it.
Wow.
And
Yeah.
it started out with the doula work and what it was like being a doula and my experiences with a doula, and then it morphed into something so much greater and has more to do with consciousness, the consciousness of animals, the consciousness of Earth, the consciousness of the universe, and how we create and recreate reality. And I go into all of it.
Fascinating. Fascinating. A lot of people will be unfamiliar with the term doula. You want to give just a brief explanation of what that is? I mean, hospice, people dying, they get that, but what is a doula? Now, I will say this: some states license various doulas, so maybe you could enlighten us before we move
I
on.
I haven't heard that. I would be thrilled if we were licensed. That would mean that it was a regulated profession and people would have to do CEs to keep up their license. And but right now, most people have a certification. Just means that you've been certified and you've gone through training, and it gives more credibility to the person. It's the other end of birth doulas. So, birth doulas have been around for so long, and it started to gain traction in the 60s.
Mhm.
And then, about, I don't know, maybe 20 years ago, 25 years ago, people started doing this as a profession. And I call myself a death doula because I just like just put myself right out there. This is what it is. This is what I deal with. This is what I help people with. A lot of people call it end of life doula. And then they go into some really ethereal kind of names, and psycho, psychopomp. Um, oh, I can't even think off the top of my head about the other ones. Uh, Death midwife, things like that. But I just put it out there. This is what I do.
So that
And
means are you right there bedside during the actual
absolutely,
process?
yes.
So a
Yeah.
hospice type situation would be similar or different?
Uh, Hospice, I wasn't exactly called a doula, an end of life doula with them. They have their own program.
Mhm.
And so I was trained in their program. It's called No One Dies Alone, which was developed by a nurse many, many years ago. And so I was trained in that for hospice, and I would be called to sit vigil for people who didn't have family, or if family came in and they needed emotional support.
Gotcha.
And it was Oh, it almost makes me tear up. The work that I was doing was so incredibly profound. And to be there as you're on the last page of someone's book of life. And it is so important to a lot of the patients, a lot of the people that I sat with, a lot of members of their family to have that support. And I thought that what drew me to being an end of life doula was I'm a medium, and so I'm on this side and I'm having the deceased come through to give them messages. What would it be like to be on this end and to sit with someone and be a companion and then feel whomever's coming in for them and what kind of experiences they're having? And I was fortunate enough to have two shared death experiences. And the first one I had, it was actually the first vigil. And there was a woman, and I get teary every time I think about her. Um, I would go in and visit her and talk with her, and she would kiss my hand, and I would leave, and she would blow kisses at me. And I came in for the vigil, and her daughter-in-law was there, and her daughter-in-law gave me some background information about her that she was deaf. She wasn't born that way. She ended up being that way through age and didn't want to get hearing aids. And so she began reading lips, so she could read lips of anyone. And she was had a history of not making a lot of money. She was a low-end earner, I guess is how it's put. And very kind woman, just very, very kind and so sweet. And when she passed, when she took her last breath, she took me with her. And I don't prefer using crossing over or crossing the veil because I don't believe we actually cross over, and I don't believe that there actually is a veil between us and the spirit world. We're all connected. And it's like walking from one room into another room. You're walking into a new dimension, and you're leaving this dimension and you're just walking into a new dimension without a body, and you're in spirit form. And sometimes it takes people a while to get used to not having a body, and some people adjust very, very quickly. And when she took me on her journey, she took me to this field, and it was a huge, huge field of yellow flowers, and all of the flowers were different. Some from this reality, some from another reality. They were about shin high, and she was running through the flowers. She reverted back to the age of 12, and I instantly knew that she did that because at 12, she had no responsibilities in life. She was healthy. She had a lot of health problems. She was healthy and had long, luxurious hair, and was running towards her father. I did not see the father. I could feel the father. There were mountains in the background. There was forests on either side, and it was just the most beautiful scene. And this woman was so kind that, sorry,
No problem.
she was so kind that she thought of me to take me along with her and to show me. And that was my most profound experience in my vigil work. There was another man who was dying, and he didn't seem to, he would only last another few hours. And the nurses had come in, the CAs had come in, had given him some medicine to make him relax, and they had given him a bath, a bed bath, changed his clothes, shaved him, and uh, his son was there, and I went there to relieve the son so he could go get lunch. And so I was sitting there with the gentleman, and I said, "Your son has left. He's gone to get lunch. Your wife will be back." She had to go to another funeral out of state for another family member. And I said, "She'll be back on Monday. She'll be here on Monday." And I was just talking to him, and I said, "I'm just sitting here with you and keeping you company until your son comes back," and introduced myself. And about, I don't know, minutes after I spoke to him and told him his son left and his wife was gone, uh, he passed.
Mhm.
And it was very smooth, easy, peaceful. And I felt someone behind me. It was really strong. And I thought it was the hospice nurse coming in. And I turned to look at her at the doorway, and I saw him walking towards the door and just walking through the door. And that was all I saw. But I knew, now what I said before, that we just go into another dimension. He wasn't actually walking through the door. That was my perception. And he was just walking into his new reality, into his new dimension. And I thought maybe this is how we get these myths about opening the windows so the spirit can leave, or opening the doors so the spirit can leave. Maybe in the past, over the centuries, people have seen people doing that, walking out the door or walking through the window, and they're just walking to their new dimension, their new reality. And it's us that are seeing what we see here. And so those are my two shared death experiences with hospice.
Fascinating. Yeah. My wife was a hospice nurse.
Mm,
So
she knows.
here within the house. And yeah. And so, anyway, all that being said, yeah, I think people get, as people, and there's going to be listeners out there that they have family members that are going through the death
Hmm.
process itself. And so to
Hmm.
hear those stories like you relate, I think that is extremely healing. It's God's work, no doubt about it. I mean, you've got to really have the right set of, uh, frequencies to do that, so to speak. And I guess you're now you've been doing these psychic medium workshops or had those experiences since you were like 9, and I'm
Hmm.
sure those blended in and helped you with what you're doing in that line. But you've moved on from that into more psychic medium. You even dealing with some ETs, UFO kind of stuff. So where do you go from here? What's happening now?
Okay, all
Put it
right. What's
that way.
happening?
Yeah.
Um, it started when it started out at 9, and this is what I believe happens for people. And now everybody's entitled to their own opinions and have their own experiences and form their belief systems around their personal experiences and what everything about their life. And so I respect everyone's opinion and belief systems. So people may agree with me, not agree with me. What I believe is that we go through many, what I'll call awakenings during our lifetime. Not all awakenings come with a thunderbolt and, hallelujah and the angels singing.
Right.
Sometimes, a lot of times, maybe for some people, it happens through traumatic events in our life. The first, and this was not traumatic, the first experience that I had with UFOs was that I saw a UFO going over my house in Miami. I didn't see it as a craft. It was a ball of light, and there was no sound to it. It went over the house. I was on one side of the house. I ran to the other side of the house and watched it go and then disappear. No sound whatsoever. Not shortly after that, I walked into my bedroom. Now, in Miami, the house was tiled throughout. It was Cuban tile, so it was very large pieces of tile. And I walked into my bedroom, and in the very center of one of the tiles were three like silver nuggets. And I bent down to pick them up, and they were small. And I picked them up, and my first thought, the first thing that came to my head was that the UFO people were here last night. And then after that, I started having dreams. I've been a very prolific dreamer. A lot of dreams of being out of body and astral projecting, and so I started having dreams, visitations from relatives that had died. And so that progressed all through my life and having experiences, having dreams about finding a friend of mine from school in elementary school. And I was told I had these dreams once a week. It was the same exact dream every week. And finally, after a year of that, I said, okay, give me a dream that tells me where she is. Because in all of these dreams, I was searching for her. In the final dream that I had, I was given the name and shown a picture of the girl who had information about her. And so I wasn't living in Miami at the time. I went back to Miami. I knew where this girl lived. And this is before cell phones and Google and all of that. And I went to her home. She was still living there with her parents. And she told me exactly where she was, gave me her phone number. We connected, visited a couple of times. She came to where I was living, and I went to her. And then, poof, we stopped communicating. And so for me, I believe that was a dream for me to come to a conclusion of that friendship because we had just never came to an end. My motherhood was very ill, and my grandmother took her to Cincinnati to be in the hospital. I had to go live with relatives. So we were just kind of plucked out of, my brother and I were plucked out of our lives. And so I wasn't able to say goodbye to any of my friends. And so that was for me bringing everything full cycle because she was very important to me.
Right.
And she understood things that I was seeing too. And I don't know how we knew in elementary school about different dimensions, but she asked me one day, she said, do you see people out of the corner of your eye that aren't really there? And I said, I see them all the time. I see them walking around all the time. And she said, those are people in the fourth dimension. I said, okay. So that kind of knowledge has just kind of been baked into me and been a part of me. And so after that, it was the first traumatic event that started the UFO was my parents getting divorced. And then it moved on to other traumatic events in my life, where it led to when I met my husband, Tom, in Milwaukee, and he was giving ESP classes. For those people that don't know what that is, it's extrasensory perception. And
That's old school.
it
At this
is.
point, it is. For those of us who've been
Very.
around a ways, you understand what I mean. Yes,
So
exactly.
there was somebody that had a sex cult that used ESP, so there's no
Ah,
confusion. It's
yeah, I know. Yeah, big change. Show up to wrong class. Yeah,
so
or maybe the right class. I don't. Who's to judge, right? Oh,
oh Lord. So I was there the first time that Tom channeled in public. He
uh,
had channeled a few times for friends and family that just happened spontaneous for him. And so this was the first time that he had channeled in a group. And we started dating shortly after I joined the class. And I was living, I was living in Milwaukee. I was living in a Victorian home, and it was not far from the university. And it's actually Stowell Avenue. I was living
Oh,
on
wow.
Stowell Avenue.
Wow.
And I was upstairs in my room. I had a water bed. My dog was there sleeping on the bed. I had a radio on. I rarely watched TV back then. And all of a sudden, the dog started barking. And I looked over, and the bed was doing this. The water bed was doing this. And I thought, holy crap.
Yeah.
And the dog jumped off the bed, and I just stood in the room. The curtains started flapping back and forth. The rocking chair that I had was rocking back and forth. The radio went on. I was terrified. I was absolutely terrified. And the room shook like it was an earthquake. And I ran downstairs, and my roommates were down there. And I said, "Did you feel that? Did you feel that earthquake? I didn't know we had earthquakes in Milwaukee." And they said, "What earthquake?" And I said, "Didn't you feel the house shake?" And they said, "No, no, everything's fine." And so I ran upstairs, and I had a wall phone um, and outside of my bedroom door. And as I got up the stairs and started walking to my door, the phone rang, and I picked it up, and Tom said, "Are you all right?" I said, "Come get me." They shook my room. And so he came and got me. I had a friend of mine in the house take care of my dog. I stayed with him for a couple of weeks until I had the nerve to go back. And it wa- it- I was just insanely terrified. I thought the house was haunted. I thought they were going to come after me. I didn't know who it was because I had felt spirits in the house anyway. And I took all of my metaphysical books, anything on that I had on acupuncture, metaphysics, all of the books that I had. And yeah, this is crazy. This is really crazy. This is how
Not in our
terrified
world. Not in our world. It's everything's perfectly normal here.
So, so I took the next day I took white paint and I painted a white cross on all of my books.
Yeah.
And I got my girlfriend Sue, and we at that time in Milwaukee, they pick up the garbage in the alleys. And so there's usually a garage, an unattached garage. And so I went to the garage and I got this 50-gallon drum, and and I put all the books in the drum, pulled it out into the center of the alley, and I think I took lighter fluid or something and lit them on fire.
Yep.
Terrified, I'm telling you, terrified.
Yeah.
So
So now,
it
what year would this have been approximately?
1970, 74,
Okay.
75, something like that.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So this is in a time period when people were not nearly as in tune with all this kind of stuff
No,
that we talk
no,
about. That would have
no.
been, you're there in the Bible Belt kind of area, and
Yeah, yeah.
Americana, Wisconsin,
Yes,
all that.
yeah,
So
yes.
you were really weird if somebody would have
I've
figured
always
that
been
out.
weird.
Yeah, exactly, exactly.
It's good
So
to be weird.
your psychic mediumship now that you do, I mean, since you had these experiences getting in, what are you doing with it now? I mean, what's your typical day
All
with?
right. It started out, the reading started out, I started doing readings professionally 2003, I believe it was. And it's always been for years, it's been deceased coming through and giving loved ones messages and things like that. A few years ago, right during COVID and during the writing of this book and having Abram, who is the personality that speaks through my husband. He's been a wonderful friend and mentor to me and helped me understand concepts and things that I write about in the book. And things started changing. I started doing automatic writing and with my ET family. And part of that, I have a chapter in the book of automatic writing, and it's all messages from them, and it's about ourselves, it's about the earth and taking care of the earth, and some of it they weave in about our society and how our society is structured and advice for us. And then it moved into my readings, having people's origins come through. They're either planetary origins or their star system, whether in this universe or another galaxy. If it's in another galaxy, I am not familiar with any names. I'm not given any names of any star systems or anything like that. And so I started asking people, do you want to know your ET origin? Because none of us are really from here. We all have ET origins, and we are here for just a blink of an eye. And so I have never had anyone turn me down. And so everyone that I have done a reading for asked me that. And then conscious channeling started coming in, whether it was their guide or whether it was an ET presence, or they could be both. A lot of times our guides are ETs.
Let me jump in and say,
Sure.
okay, for the listener, viewer, let's talk about a mediumship versus channeling and how you see the two different, or are they overlapped? What's your take on that?
They,
People do
it's
hear that,
all right. So all mediums are psychic, but not all psychics are mediums.
correct?
I think we all know that.
Yeah.
All of this, everything, we have all possibilities within us. We have been born with all possibilities within us. And a lot of people, everyone can have mediumship abilities and they can have channeling abilities. But if you're not born into it, you're only going to get so far.
And when you say born into it, what does that mean exactly?
That means that being born into it is, it's like any person with any kind of talent, musician, a great musician, artist, uh, sports. Some people are born to do that.
Right. Yeah.
And
I know I kind of explain it when you're talking about mediumship or psychic ability. It's like driving a car. Virtually everybody can drive a car. Virtually everybody. But you may have the little old lady who drives to the church and to the grocery store and home, and that's it. It's 20
yeah,
miles an hour
right.
around a small little rural community, where her nephew drives in the Daytona 500.
Yes, yes, yeah,
And so are they both driving? Yes, but one's at a super high
right.
speed and high tech, and how did
Yes,
he get there? Like going to the gym, muscles. You
right,
build that. You may have a
right.
natural inclination for it, but then you build beyond that. And I think that's similar to what you're trying to say. If not, correct me.
No, that's correct. The analogy I use in my book is that everyone knows how to use a hammer, but not everyone's a carpenter.
Yep, exactly.
So the conscious channeling is just uh, me having more awareness, um, exercising that psychic muscle, and having have done this all my lifetime, all of my life, is that conscious channeling is just a natural progression for me. It might not be for somebody else. Now, I will never in this lifetime do what Tom is doing. Conscious channeling, and a lot of people don't know the difference between channeling and conscious channeling. Conscious channeling is you are completely aware of what's going on, what's being said. You are just moving yourself aside, which you need to do in mediumship anyway. You cannot involve yourself in your reading at all. You have to move aside and let that information come in, and you be the vessel. You just be, some people don't like the term empty vessel, but it's basically allowing that information to come through. And so conscious channeling is just a natural progression of mediumship where you can allow and invite a higher being to, and it doesn't really need to be a higher being. It can even be someone's relative. You're just opening yourself up more and not interpreting. You're just giving a direct message. So that's the difference. You're not receiving visions and information and then interpreting that. You are allowing that information to where that deceased or higher being can speak directly to that person.
And speaking with a lot of channels because of the show here, we've got opportunity to talk to a lot of people at channel and mediums and so forth. So I see like kind of three categories. I see the open conscious, I mean, you're aware of what's happening at all times. And then you go all the other extreme, they're almost in a Edgar Casey state. They're almost
Mhm.
laid out flat and they're out, and then the voice is coming through, or their eyes are closed, and that kind of thing. And then you get something in between. I see occasionally, I call it the 50-50. So they're kind of in, kind of out. They can remember, after you ask them, maybe 50% of what went
Mhm.
through, but they can't get all of the details. They have to
Mhm.
rely on somebody else to give them the details. Then they may pick it up. But so it's kind of in between, and it's a kind of a unique thing. I don't think it's totally one way and totally the other. But yeah, and if for folks who wanted to see an example of that, of either kind. Obviously, your husband does that, and you can see him. Does he have a website or some YouTube? What would be the best way if they want to
Yeah,
actually see somebody
yes.
demonstrate that?
Uh, he doesn't remember anything.
Okay,
When he channels, he comes out of it and he doesn't remember anything.
right,
And he has a YouTube channel. We both have a channel, but we both post the same thing on both of our channels.
sure.
If they search for him, Tom Massari Abram, it'll come up. And all of our
And
videos.
so Abram is considered a kind of a group consciousness that he's tapping into.
No, this is a personality who's had three physical lives.
Okay,
One was in the time of Jesus. I didn't know Jesus, knew of him. And I don't remember what he said his profession was. He was on Atlantis
mhm,
and a Mayan shaman,
okay,
which is where Tom and I knew Abram
gotcha,
in another life, in a past life. We were in that group with him.
gotcha. Tommy, do you have a question?
I'm just listening to it. It's fascinating. One question I have is, as you started doing the channeling, how did you know that some thing or person or being wanted to come through? Like, did you get I want to use your body as the translation device, or did you seek it out, or
No,
how did that come to be?
no. When I do a reading for someone, I ask the people who come through, if you're on mother's side, you come in on my right side. If you're father's side, come in on my left side. If someone comes in and is in right in front of me, that's a guide for them. If someone comes in and they're standing directly behind me, that is my guide. That is someone that is there for me. And it's it's a feeling that I get, a physical feeling that I get that I want to speak words that aren't mine.
Okay.
And so then I make sure that I move myself over and out of the way, and I see what happens. And I just did a reading day before yesterday, and that happened. There was somebody that came through for this gentleman and gave him advice, some life advice. And so it's a feeling. I get a feeling. I get a feeling that they want to speak, and then I get a physical feeling around my jaw and mouth that I want to speak words that are not mine.
You know, I think that's fascinating because a lot of people that do this kind of work, um, I talk to people that get when they go to do automatic writing, for example, their hand starts hurting and their forearm starts hurting, where they
Mm,
feel like they really have to do this. Other people get this jaw thing
mm,
where they want to speak. I find it fascinating that there is that kind of language that you start to develop. And you said, you know, male side left, female side right, you know, my guide behind, your guide in front. I want people to understand when people start to develop these skill sets, that's what they have to do. They have to say, this is how I want it, because you're large and in charge. You're the boss. And so you can say, line it up over here, or I'm not going to talk to you. Line it up over here, or I'm not going to talk to you. And you
yeah.
can also set your time. Okay, Wednesdays at 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. This is when I'm open for business. Other than that, door shut, not talking to you. Because what I find is a lot of people who first get into this, and maybe you can chime in on this, if they're empathic or they have some skills they're just starting to develop, it's like they're just wide open and they can't shut it off. So how did you
Uh-huh.
learn to shut it off? Or
I,
have you?
d- I don't.
Yeah, okay.
I don't. I work differently, I think.
Uh-huh.
And I feel that after I do a reading, if I shut myself off, I'm going to possibly shut off further experiences. And so I let a lot of people, I don't put the white bubble around me or the blue bubble and protect myself. I believe that I am my own protection. And I believe this is just totally my belief that that is fear-based, that you think or believe that something is going to get you, that there's something negative. I can tell you, having having all of this ability and all of my experiences throughout my entire life, I have never had anything evil, negative, anything come through like that. Now, I have had people come through who were bipolar or schizophrenic in life. And boy, is that a little bit crazy.
No pun
Um,
intended.
I'm sorry?
No pun intended.
Yeah, yes. Sorry, no offense. No
Yeah.
offense. No offense. I did a reading for somebody out in California one time. And the day before I was to do the reading, it was just a really weird day. It was really strange. And I could feel somebody in the house, but I couldn't get a fix on it. It was like the house was just completely filled with this energy. And it was like, what's going on? What the heck is going on? And it was my emotions. I'd be up, like really happy and energetic. And then I would just go down in the dumps and think, oh my God, doomsday, this and that, the world's going to come to an end. And my emotions just were swinging back and forth all day long. It was like, this is crazy. And so I was watching TV right before bed and I was just like, okay, I've had it. Just come through and tell me who you are and what you want. And so now some people might get freaked out about this, but I knew what was happening. I knew it wasn't a spirit telling me to do something bad to myself. Okay. I just knew it. And after I said that, tell me who you are, what's going on, I heard, cut yourself. You'll feel better. And I thought, oh my God. I said, this has to do with tomorrow's reading. And this person was a cutter.
Mhm.
This person was a cutter.
Yep.
So I found out in the reading that the person was bipolar and he had come through, the person I was doing the reading for didn't want this at all. didn't want to hear this at all, didn't want this person to come through. But the guy came through for an apology, with an apology, saying, I'm sorry to have made your life hell. And so my client said that this person had worked for them and was just like to and fro all the time and just made their life miserable.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Well,
So,
let me switch gears a little bit. Let's talk about these for just a little bit, about the UFOs and ETs we've had, and Tom will probably chime in on this, but we've had an inordinate amount of recent stuff on YouTube, regular news and so forth about ETs and
mhm,
UFOs. I think it's pretty well established that what we call UFOs or extraterrestrials have been here for
mhm,
thousands upon thousands of
mhm,
years in one form or another. They're currently here. Is it all going to come out if you follow Bashar?
mhm.
2027 is the year that he claims that contact's going to be made. I don't think it's going to be made in the landing. Landing on the White House lawn and then having a discussion. I don't think that's going to
Right, exactly.
it's going to be a different kind. And I think it's only going to be for
Mhm,
higher consciousness type people that
mhm.
are going to be able to do that. But what's your take on the current circumstance related to that?
My personal feeling is that contact is going to be made more on a telepathic level, that they're going to be reaching more people on a telepathic level. Now, I can tell you that, and this has been written about, I don't know if it was Billy Meyer, somebody from the very beginning of the UFO phenomenon was saying that the ETs will follow someone for 10 years to make sure that they are ethical people before they make contact with someone. Now, I have done readings for people where their guide comes through who happens to be an ET to give them information. And this was like their first contact. And they had the ability, if they wanted to further connect with this ET. Now, some people have ETs as guides, but if they are not living an authentic life and they are not ethical, they will not have contact with that person. They will continue to be their guide, but contact will not be made directly, telepathically. It's important, and I found this throughout my readings, through my entire life of doing this work, is that we need to live in our truth. We need to live authentically. We need to be kind to others. It's very important to be kind to yourself and be kind to others, because with every person that you meet, whether you like them or not, and we don't have to love or like everybody, there are some people our energies just do not match, and those people should just stay away from each other. Uh, there are there are people that we feel disgust for and have disdain for. But I recently had a conversation with someone that in the end, it was, instead of feeling disdain and disgust, try and look beyond that and feel sorry for that person, not in a superior way, but to have grace for that person.
Yeah,
You don't have to have
they're
anything. I'm sorry?
yeah. No, I was going to say they're just not at the vibratory level you may be at.
Right,
They're like a child,
right.
and acting accordingly. Now, granted, they're in a human adult body typically,
Hmm.
but they may not have that level of consciousness.
Hmm.
And so, yeah, but they also provide I think, a bit of polarity for us, because it's that contrast here in the earth plane that where we get an opportunity to learn. And we see
Hmm.
somebody who is very negative, and
Hmm.
we can observe it, but don't have to be entrenched in it or be
Hmm.
affected in a bad way by it, but see that it's there and it serves a purpose for
Hmm.
some people around them to have that negative energy, if you want to call it that. And so some growth that can come from that. I kind of look at it as a bit of a learning tool. What am I learning from this experience as it relates to somebody who's very negative, what we would call negative
Hmm.
here in the earth plane? So I don't know, Tommy, do you want to chime in on that?
Yeah, it's funny how people come into your lives for very different reasons, different lessons and such,
Hmm.
and our experience thereof, how do we want to interpret that? And so it sounds like that's kind of where we're going with this conversation right now.
Yeah, there was a person who has been in the news, but not up front in the news.
Mhm.
And the first time I ever saw him, I knew that this person in a former life had been an SS officer.
Mm-hmm.
And and I had a conversation with Abram about it. And he said that this person is uh, continuing in this life to be cruel to others. It's not who you think. This is somebody way, way in the background. Um, and that this person is in a cycle of lives who will have this kind of life for the next 2 and 3 lives.
Hmm.
So when given that kind of context, it's I'm sorry for this person that they have to go through this for not only a past life, but this life and 2 or 3 other lives that's going to be like this until they change, until they wake up to understanding themselves in a deeper way. And, I also tell people when I do readings that when people pass, they're not automatically enlightened. Some people are. Some people who have led a very difficult life or have not been that nice all of a sudden become, philosopher of the year, when they come through and they're reading. Some people hang on to their personality for a long time. And I believe we all come into this life with a design. We design our lives. And because of free will and because the universe and ourselves, everything about consciousness creates and recreates itself. And so we always have an opportunity to recreate ourselves. And so in a way, it's very sad that someone is doing that to themselves, but that's their deal. That's their deal. It's not mine. And so I'm separate from that. And, you know, uh, you have people that are toxic in your life, say bye-bye.
Yeah.
Take
No,
care of
no
yourself.
requirement. You have to immerse yourself.
No requirement at all.
Yeah, absolutely. You get to choose
Yeah,
freely, right?
you can be
Yeah,
compassionate and you can give them grace, but you can still not have anything to do with them.
yeah, absolutely. They serve a purpose on a scale somewhere, but
Mm,
you don't have to get totally involved in it. So, well, we're going to get to the point of wrapping this up. This has been fascinating, but so
wow.
I wanted you to, if you have things you want to leave the audience with, go ahead and let them know what's going on.
Okay. Yeah, boy, I never got some really, to really profound stuff that's happened that is what I can tell everyone is that you are far more than you think you are. You are much greater than what you think you are. This lifetime is just a slice of the pie. And you are here. I don't like thinking of this as a school or a place of learning. This is a place of creativity. This reality, this earth, is unique in our universe. And that's why not only do we have the attention of people from other galaxies and other planets, other dimensions coming in through portals or whatever, they have been here. ETs have been here for, well, let me put it this way. I believe the the ETs created us. And so they have a vested interest in our development. And you have the ability to live authentically, to take responsibility for everything that you create in your life. And this is a reality where you can create what you want. That may be difficult to have that concept because things just sometimes don't work out. But we came in here with a design. We came in here with agreements that we have with other people. Live your best life. Love yourself. Love who you are. Have a good life. And that's pretty much it.
Well, well said. Well said. Absolutely. Tommy, do you have anything to wrap up with, or questions, comments?
I think maybe for the audience, you know, saying that this is a place of creativity, if they were new to this whole concept, from your experience, how did they make that work?
Oh, that's a really loaded question.
I know.
Oh, wow. Be responsible. Be responsible. Don't blame others. Don't blame yourself. Take a look at your thoughts, your emotions. Get to know your emotions. This is key to understanding who you are. Go into that inner wilderness, your subconscious, your unconscious. Work in your dreams and start there, because your dreams speak to you. That is you speaking to you.
Cool. Sounds like good advice.
It's a start.
It's a start. Yeah. Well, this has been a start. I mean, our time's just flown by here.
It has.
It really has flown by. We could sit and talk for hours. And for those listeners out there, if they want more of what you have to say, Sue, obviously take a look at your book. Can they get that on like Amazon, or where can they get it?
Any place that you can order a book, whatever you prefer. Most people prefer Amazon. It has a short write-up about the book. It's on Kindle. On Kindle, it's only $4.99, very affordable. And I won't say it's a manual for living, but in a way it is. It tells you everything about consciousness and creativity and creating reality.
Yeah, and I would just tell people that you almost really have to have given everything we've talked about, you have to have a bit of a understanding of reincarnation, although it's not necessarily reincarnation. That's a linear thought, parallel lives, whatever you want to call that, in order to raise your consciousness to the point where you can even understand some of these things that we're talking about, because it is a continuation, life after life, in this planet, that planet, different vibratory lives, physical lives, all these things. And once that concept is absorbed into your brain, then some of the things you talked about, Tom and I talked about, start to make sense. But if you're still in the box where you've got, 81 years here and you're out, that's it, this is not going to make a whole lot of sense. It's going to go rub you raw. And that's not the intent here. The intent is to broaden your horizons a little bit and take a look at some bigger concepts. But you really kind of got to know that is a real thing. Otherwise, a lot of this is like woo-woo. It just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
And there is some science to this. And only in America, really, does anybody raise an eyebrow when you talk about reincarnation in different lives. The rest of the world, 85% of it's like, duh. We get it. So,
I know, I know.
and that's the whole, churchy church thing that's kind of,
Right.
permeated our culture. And
Hmm.
so to look outside your culture, look at more than one book. There's lots of details, lots of massive amounts of quantity of data. I wouldn't expect somebody to understand what you said if they haven't been exposed to the data, and the data is little by little, book by
Right.
book. Your book would be an
Right.
excellent place to start some of the
Yes.
stuff and start
Yes.
moving down and just grab all the data. I mean, you don't become a doctor by reading a first aid book. You go to medical school
Right.
and you study thousands of things. And that's the same thing here. If you want to invest in your own consciousness and your own understanding, then by all means, do the same thing Jesus did. Go and start studying for years and years and years, and then you might come to a point where you can really realize what's happening at a greater sense. So I would encourage people to do that. No question about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, Sue, thank you so much for coming. It was fascinating. We could do this
Thank you.
again.
I would love it.
If we get a different, no, not a different, but a more advanced topic, we will certainly call you, or you call us, and we'll get you back on here, and we'll talk about some really in-depth stuff. Feel free to nudge Tom. Maybe he can come on with you. You can have a duel.
Oh, that'd be great. He would whenever he does an interview, he always channels.
Oh, well, perfect. There you go.
Yeah.
That would be a blast. We would
Yeah.
love to have that. So
Okay, that'd be great.
anyway, very good. Well, on behalf of everybody here at the Metaphysical Mysteries, we want to thank Sue for being here. We want to thank you all for joining us, and we will be back with another exciting guest in the very near future. So have a wonderful day. Thank you.